2024 NFL playoffs, it is finally here. The Rams making it as the 6th seed after defeating the San Francisco 49ers. What can we expect against the Detroit Lions? A lot of things going into this one. We'll break it down for you guys here in the next edition of Sideline Sports Podcast. Welcome to Sideline Sports Podcast. If you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Sideline Sports Podcast. I'm the host, Alex Naveja, where if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. If you guys are liking our interviews under the lights, finally had an interview with Eastvale Roosevelt's own Braden Burries, who has been dominant during this high school basketball season. You guys can follow us on all of our social media handles down below on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, and on X. We're always trying to get some interviews out there for you guys and always looking for the next top athlete in the high school level. And of course, while you guys are down there, hit the thumbs up on this episode. Comment down below your playoff predictions for not just the Rams, but a whole entire NFL. Who's your take to go to the bowl? Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell while you're at it. But of course, you guys know the familiar face over here on my left-hand side. He's been here before. He is one of the biggest experts to talk about Rams and talk about Chargers football. It goes by the Will Hernandez, and he works with KTLA. He's a staff writer there with KTLA. What's going on, Will? I know it's been a little while since we've talked, since the beginning of the season, actually.
What's up, Alex? Yeah. Week one. Don't remind me. I was, very low on the Rams, and here we are, 10-7. Right in the playoff picture. Big game this week in Detroit. It's my favorite time of the year, wild card weekend. We got a number of games, pretty much every game. Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So yeah, man, feeling good and ready to talk some Rams. Big game.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is when we dictate who the boys and the dogs are going to be here in this one. I mean, you can't really sleep on these wild card teams on any side, AFC, NFC. But I mean, the Rams, when I talked to Blaine Grisak with Turf Showtime, he was talking about how nobody wants to play the Rams right now. And I think that's really the case. You look at the second half of the season, and they only lost like a game or two. They just lost against Baltimore, who took them to overtime, and honestly was like the greatest game of the regular season. And now the Rams, second string or third string team, defeating the San Francisco 49ers. I understand that they were also using second string, third string guys, but still, like, a win is a win against arguably the best team in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think it just goes to show you how locked in Sean McVay is right now. At the helm with the play calling, with the game preparation, the week preparation. He's dialed in, and he got a lot going on last season. And then obviously at the beginning of this year with the birth of his son, his first child. So you could definitely see he was stressed and overwhelmed at first, but as you mentioned before, what Blaine Grisak said last week, said nobody wants to play the Rams, and you can definitely make that argument. The Rams, since the bye week, since Matthew Stafford came back in week 11, remember he got hurt and they lost that brutal game in Lambeau against the Packers. I believe it was week 9. He didn't play that game. That was the only game he missed this season, and you can see the drop off with the Rams, but ever since he's been back, he looks sharp. He's healthy. The Rams are 6-1 during that span with that only loss against Baltimore. Again, they could have easily won, and you can argue should have won. I mean, he's dialed in. He's completed 160 of his 243 pass attempts during that span. That's a 66% completion percentage. He's got just under 1,900 yards and 16 touchdowns with only 4 picks during that span. Um, he's dialed in right now, man. He looks almost better than the Super Bowl Matthew Stafford because you can argue. I mean, I would say the receiving corps is just as good as it was that year. And the Rams definitely have a better run game than we had that year. Tyron Williams, the second year player out of Notre Dame. He's been a huge revelation for the Rams, and him and the great Puka Nacua. You could argue those two guys were, without a doubt, they were the spark plug for the Rams at the beginning of the year when they came out of nowhere. They beat the Seahawks in Seattle. They go to Indy and beat the Colts. They lose a game to the Niners that they were really competitive in, despite not having Cooper Cup. So yeah, the Rams, everything looks good, and I think that this last game, Week 18 against the Niners, as you mentioned, it was mostly backups playing that game, especially in the second half. First half, the Niners played a lot of their starters. Nick Bosa was in there, Deebo Samuel was in there, Brian Ayuk was in there. So and the Rams, they definitely gave points at that point. But in the second half, you could see that will to win, that will to compete, and they're a dangerous team in this playoffs. And they beat Detroit on Sunday, which is possible. I don't think. I mean, I know Niner fans don't want to see the Rams.
I mean, that's absolutely true, man. I mean, you really pointed out, and I think all Niners fans are really hating on the Rams right now and being able to defeat their second string, third string team. But I mean, I think one guy that I think he deserves that much credit. Former Cleveland Browns Demarcus Robinson. I mean, look at the receptions he has had in the second half of this season. He has been tremendous. I mean, we like to talk about the big players like Kyron Williams, like Puka Nacua, Cooper Cup, Tutu Atwell. He hasn't had very many receptions in the second half, but I think it's Atwell and Robinson that I think deserve to have some more credit than what they've done. I mean, just the blocking game. You know how much Sean McVay likes to send his receivers to block. Puka Nacua will actually block himself. Cooper Cup, he'll block too to be able to create like the lanes for Kyron Williams, for any receivers that are running the routes. And I mean, even Tyler Higbee, he always comes up with some big receptions. But again, Demarcus Robinson, I think he's a big essential piece going into this playoffs, and it's going to give Matthew Stafford some more targets going into Detroit. And I think even with the players that came off of the bench last week against the San Francisco 49ers, I think that even gives Sean McVay even more offensive weapons that he can maybe turn to, that hey, we need someone for a special situation here against this Detroit defense. I think that's what it's going to come down to sometimes. To really dig in to the sidelines, see, hey, let's change the play up a little bit. We need this crucial first down to keep this drive alive. Let's switch Cooper Cup for Tutu Atwell or something, or just change up the dynamic a little bit offensively to be able to get that first down, keep that essential drive going.
Right. Well, Demarcus Robinson has definitely become a very reliable receiver that Matthew Stafford has continued to target. He's clearly won a number three receiver job. He's been at third option, and he's in both games that the Rams had to kind of fight their way to win, or to at least give himself a chance to win. He saw over 10 targets. He's played more than 90% of the snaps the last uh 3 weeks. Well, he's played almost 90% of snaps the last 4 weeks before week 18. So he's as you mentioned, he's become super reliable. Um, he's I mean, he's become a clear cut number three option, but you have to start with Puka Nacua. I mean, he's the man. Should win the Rookie of the Year award this season. He sets the rookie receiving record for catches and yards. I mean, but no, you're absolutely right about Demarcus Robinson and Tutu Atwell. They certainly just deserve their flowers. And D Rob, he's gonna the Rams are gonna need him to have a productive game, because the Lions are gonna make an effort to not let Cooper Cup get free. I mean, Cooper Cup is still the man. I know he got hurt. He missed the first 4 games with that hamstring injury. And at times he's been overshadowed overshadowed by by Puka, by Kyron. So the Rams just have so many weapons right now, and Matthew Stafford is finding him. He's locked in. He's you know and the offensive line has been pretty good. They've been really reliable. And then obviously we have Kyron Williams, who's been I mean he's the first rookie. He's the first running back to rush for. He's the first Rams running back to rush for more than 1,000 yards since Todd Gurley. I mean,
Wow.
look how much of a drop off the Rams have had at the running back position since they lost Todd Gurley, and obviously that Super Bowl year, we were able to they were able to do it with Cam Akers, and I want to say Darrell Henderson was part of that team. I think there's one more guy I'm forgetting about, but um, he it's they've just been so solid all around, and they've been able to, they just I mean I get it. They're the teams that they've played against, during that run I was talking about, how they're 6-1 in the last 7 games. Five of those teams were non-playoff teams, but you've seen the rant. I mean, you look at that Giants game where they really had to scrap and fight for every first down, every touchdown. The game against the Ravens, where that was a game I was just floored by, because I didn't expect him to go into Baltimore and be able to move the ball against him. A team uh that plays a very exotic defense. And you saw Matthew Stafford go in there, pick them apart, and it's a compliment to Sean McVay and the coaching staff, and Stafford for making watching film. But you look at the over under for this week. It's 51.5. That's one of the bigger. It's the biggest number for out of all the playoff games this year. That's the biggest total, or excuse me, the for this week, that's the biggest total. So it tells you that the Vegas odds makers certainly believe that there's going to be a lot of points in this one, and they have no doubts about the Rams' capabilities on offense against a Detroit defense that is pretty solid.
Absolutely. I mean, this is going to be one of the wild card games that I would say is going to attract a lot of attention. I mean, just for one obvious reason, Jared Goff is going to go against his former team, go against his former head coach, and just see how he's going to do there. And then Matthew Stafford, he's going to go back to where his career started. He's going to go back to Detroit and he's going to play him. And saw this little thing on X that supposedly there's a fan group in Detroit that's going to ban all Stafford jerseys. I'm just saying, I have a feeling Matthew Stafford's just gonna go off on Detroit. Not gonna say, I'm not saying it's gonna be easy. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying with more reason for Stafford to throw for 300 plus passing yards, to go in with like three passing touchdowns, and just to kind of go off in that game, which is with more reason. And I mean, with a reaction that was said this weekend, I think his wife mentioned how excited he was that he's going to go back to Detroit in a big playoff game. And I think the world was wondering, man, when are these two teams going to face off against each other? When? And it comes down to a playoff game. Like, you can't ask for anything more. Like, the planets are aligned just perfectly for this matchup. But I mean, what do you want to see, Will? Like, what do you want to see? What do you need to see for the Rams to win this one?
Well, I need to see them, be able to stop the Lions on offense. We talked a lot about Matthew Stafford, and obviously, it's his first return to Detroit since being traded to the Rams in January 2021. You can make the argument it's worked out for both teams. The Rams got the Super Bowl. Obviously, 2022 was a pretty disastrous, but they put themselves in that position. They went all in, and it paid off. The Lions were the sweethearts of the league this year. Jared Goff was really, really, really good. In Sean McVay's press conference or news conference um, on Monday, he talked about, obviously he's going to be asked, and that's the biggest, 4 years together, they won Super Bowl, they won, I want to say, two division titles. Uh, he says he just sees a lot of confidence in him. He's a lot of maturity, and he has a lot of more responsibility on, like, on the line of scrimmage. You know, checking out of plays, and he's just very, very confident, and he's got a great arsenal of skill position players. And it starts with former Trojan Amon-Ra St. Brown. That guy is. I mean, he if you play fantasy football, he should be drafted. He should be one of the first receivers you draft. Um, he's so good, and the Rams are going to have their hands full with them. And the Rams haven't been that great at generating pressure. And the one thing about Jared Goff is when he has time, he's so good. You saw it so much when he was with the Rams, all those big plays to Robert Woods, um, Brandon Cooks, obviously Cooper Kupp, Todd Gurley. And the Rams, they've only had pressure on 2% of snaps this season, which is 29th in the NFL. That's not going to get it done against the Lions. Especially you have a mature and veteran quarterback like Jared Goff, who's, you talk about Matthew Stafford. Jared Goff is right there, man. He's playing great, and he's getting the ball out quick and finds receivers downfield. Unfortunately for them, it's looking like their tight end, their rookie tight end Sam Laporta is going to play. That's it's not a huge loss. It's a pretty big loss. I mean, he's one of Goff's most reliable receivers. If you play fantasy football, he was a really great. You know, um, he was a great tight end. He was one of the top tight ends in fantasy football this season. And but you're going to need to see guys like rookie defensive tackle Kobe Turner continue to play amazing right there next to Aaron Donald in his final nine games. He had 8 sacks for the Rams. Um, he's gonna be probably in a conversation for defensive rookie of the year. He should be at least. You obviously had the man Aaron Donald right there. He had another solid season, 8 sacks, 16 tackles for loss. The Rams. I have no concerns about what the offense will do. My biggest question is how will the Rams hold up against the Alliance offense that is stacked, top to bottom. They have a really good offensive line. You can tell their whole. I mean, you go back and watch that Cowboy game. Obviously they had. I was on the Cowboys that game, and I thought they were going to be able to you know put up points against the Lions and take care of them. But you saw Jared Goff and the Lions, even though they had their division already clinched, you saw them competing. And if it wasn't for a few questionable calls or um, it could have went the Lions' way. And you see a team that is just really locked in, and you look at a team like Michigan who won last night. And I know it's college football, but you see a team there that is just like they're really connected. They're all connected top to bottom. They have a great offensive line. They have two really good running backs in uh, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. So it's going to be tough for the Rams. I mean, even McVay said, "I don't know how we're going to stop these guys." And then they have former Ram Josh Reynolds, who's another very reliable target for Jared Goff, and he's been playing. So. If the Rams defensive line can, get to Goff, then, it should go the Rams' way. But if they can't, then it's going to be a back and forth battle, high scoring, and a coin flip on who wins.
I mean, I think you said all the right points that needed to be said there, Will. I mean, it really starts off defensively for the Rams. I mean, we all know offensively this team is just going to go off at any given moment. Not to disrespect Detroit for their defense, but the Rams offensively, they are fundamentally sound. They will get the job done. They got one of the top running backs in the league. They have some of the top receivers in the league as well. But then when you start looking at defensively, once you start looking at the secondary, once you start looking at maybe some of the young D line and just the young defense in general, then you start to ask some questions. And then you also need to ask about the special teams. Is the special teams going to be able to do their job? Are they going to be able to stop any kickoff returns? Because everybody's going to be returning the ball against the Rams anytime they punt away, anytime they kick off away. As long as it's not going to be a touchback or anything, you can expect any team to try to see if they can find a way through the Rams special teams. I mean, look at what they did against Baltimore. Baltimore was able to win it on a walk-off kickoff return. And I think a lot of us were thinking, man, if the Rams just had better special teams, I think it just would have been different. I think even looking at the game against New York too. I mean, looking at the Giants, there was a play where there was at least six players from the Rams special teams that were wrapped around the returner, and they just couldn't even bring him down. So I think it just really comes down to defense, and also comes down to the special teams aspects of things. And Will, how have we gone this far without talking about the kicking? They bring back Brett Maher, and they need this guy to be consistent. I mean, just looking at the kicking woes for the Rams. I mean, again, going back to the game against New York, there are just PATs that were missed. You make this PATs, and it's a difference between having to make a field goal from a touchdown. And I think those are going to be the big things: defense, special teams, and special teams includes the kicking as well. And then another thing, and I guess I'm referencing Blaine Grisack again. I think the Detroit Lions have a lot of pressure on them right now just because it's been 30 years since the Lions have been in the playoffs. So I think they're gonna have the hot seat. They're at home. I think they're gonna have a lot of pressure. Hey, we need a win. We're gonna rely on Jared Goff's veteran status and his experience to be able to lead us here. At least they have a veteran quarterback that could lead them. But I'm saying that Detroit, yeah, they're gonna be sitting in the hot seat. I mean, the Rams, most of the personnel there, they have definitely been here in a big stage.
Right. Yeah, no question about it. I mean, the Detroit Lions are Detroit Lions. It's their first home playoff game since the 1993 season. Um, this year was their first division title since the 1993 season. So, there's a lot of unfamiliarity there. A lot of unfamiliarity for their fans. So, but make no question about it, like the energy is going to be sky high. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some butterflies for the players and for the team. I'm sure Barry Sanders will be out there.
Yeah,
Um, maybe Calvin Johnson will be out there, Megatron. But
Megatron.
you know what? Through all those years, who was there was number 9, Matthew Stafford. So, uh, yeah, it's crazy how life works sometimes, and everything's coming kind of full circle for the Lions, and I guess we got to go up against Matthew Stafford, a guy who's a seasoned veteran, Super Bowl winning quarterback, who's playing some of his best football right now with a really hungry team. Sorry about that. But yeah, and you mentioned the special teams. That has definitely been the Achilles heel for the Rams this season. If they could avoid, a missed field goal, and uh, I like that they gave Lucas Haversick a chance. Um, but McVay, if he's not feeling you, he's going to cut you loose, and that's exactly what he did. He brought in a guy, who's familiar with the team, with the program, and this season he's been 74% uh on his kicks, on his field goals. So the Rams want to have somebody who's at least been there and is a little reliable. So as long as they don't give up any big plays on punt return or kick return, they should be right in the middle of this. And it's gonna go down to the wire, and let's see what happens. But yeah, it's that will definitely play a role. But I don't think it'll be too huge because I just think the Lions are, I have a lot of respect for the Lions. Just their overall, um, just overall, like the program they're running there. Dan Campbell's a really locked in. He's a really good coach who's confident and has a lot of trust and rapport with his players. At least at least from the outside looking in, they have a really good offensive line, a really good defensive line with Aiden Hutchinson. So that's gonna be tough. And they have a pretty solid run game. Their run game this season allowed just 88.8 rushing yards per game, which was second best in the NFL. However, Kyron Williams averaged 95.3 rushing yards per game, which was first in the NFL. So, it's just as I mentioned earlier, it's two teams that just they kind of resemble each other. There's a lot of similarities in the systems offensively, and they have a great rushing defense. the Rams have a really good rushing offense. Um, they both have really good passing offenses and skill players. So I'm really excited to watch this game. I think I was surprised this wasn't made a Monday night game because, it's to me this is the most exciting matchup, by far. I think the Cowboys and Packers will be a good game, should be competitive. Um, but Matthew Stafford goes back to Detroit. Jared Goff faces uh, you know, his old teammates, his old coach Sean McVay, who shipped him out of here. He cut him loose after that 2020 season. So yeah, it's going to be good. 3-point spread. I mean, Vegas is basically telling you that these are two even teams because, um, home team in the NFL usually gets 3 points. So the fact that they're just both that the spread's still at three, shows you how much respect the wise guys have for the Rams. And I think it's going to be a coin flip. But these are two really, really good teams. But if the Rams could get off to a fast start and make Jared Goff play from behind, you've seen him struggle in the past when he had to play from behind. And I think that first half is going to be key. If you see the Rams get off to a decent lead, a two-score lead, and they can maintain that through the half and through the third quarter, they should be able to, put this game away. However, if they're able to let the Lions kind of hang around and give them a chance to tie or take the lead late, that's where the Reds will still be in a good position, obviously at that, but it's you know the key for them it will be to make Jared Goff play from behind, make the Lions play from behind because so far we haven't really seen him do that against a really good team, and yeah, I'm just really excited to see this game, Alex, both you know um as a fan and as a writer, as a sports writer.
Absolutely. I mean, this is going to be the game to really watch, and it's nothing but excitement that's going to be wrapped around this one. But really quickly, Will, I'm gonna put you in the hot seat. What do you think the final score is going to be, and who advances, and what would be the opponent looking like?
Right. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 31-28. I'll go 31-27 Rams.
And they play
I think they'll play. They'll probably play the 49ers because, I mean, I like the Packers this week, but um, I don't think they'll. I mean, if the Cowboys, if the Packers lose, then the Rams would face they would probably face the winner of the Eagles and the Bucks. So I mean, you know, uh, but we'll already know by then who they'll face. Because that game is the Packers Cowboy game is, I want to say, the first game on Sunday. But
130.
um, right, more than likely they'll face the Niners, which again, that's going to be another game, another showdown between Shanahan and Sean McVay, two buddies, two guys that work together at Washington. And, the 49ers are really, really good. There's so much, even though, I grew up a Ram fan and I can't stand the 49ers, they're so fun to watch. But, you saw what happened to Brock Purdy on Christmas Day. Anything can happen on any given Sunday. So, but first things first, the Rams have to take care of business this week. And, we'll see what happens after then.
So there you have it, guys. Rams wild card game against the Detroit Lions. Gonna be an exciting one. You could catch that on Sunday, the 14th, 5 o'clock kickoff time on NBC. But that's all the time we have left here on Sideline Sports Podcast. We thank you all so much for joining us here in this one. If you guys like this episode, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below your guys' predictions on the Rams. How far will they make it? And also hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you guys know when we're uploading episodes. And of course, on my left-hand side, Will Hernandez with KTLA5, a sports writer. Man, I really appreciate you always jumping on, man. When it comes down to Rams football, when it comes down to Chargers football, you're always the go-to, man. I appreciate you jumping on.
I appreciate that, sir, and always a pleasure to be on here and talk some Rams football and Sideline Sports.
Appreciate it, man. I am Alex Naveja from Sideline Sports Podcast. Because if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. Thanks for joining us, guys, and enjoy the NFL playoffs.